Surviving Pelican Bay Supermax. The fight to stay sane. The breaking point. Imagine a man screaming into the dark, his voice bouncing off concrete walls, but no one can hear him. His fist slammed the steel door until his knuckles split open. He's not fighting another inmate. He's fighting his own mind. Days have turned into weeks, weeks into months, and now his brain is slipping into chaos. This is Pelican Bay Supermax, where silence is louder than screams, and the real battle isn't just survival, it's staying sane. But here's the question: how far can human mind bend before it finally breaks? Life in the SHU Security Housing Unit. The story starts here. The SHU, Pelican Bay's infamous security housing unit, is a place designed for total control. Prisoners live in concrete boxes, no bigger than a parking space. No windows, no sunlight, no voices, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of their own heartbeat. Inmates call it a hole. The guards call it necessary. Doctors call it psychological torture. Some men pace in circles for hours just to feel movement. Others talk to imaginary friends. And some, like Miguel, try to hold on. He tells himself stories in his head, repeats prayers he barely remembers, and counts the cracks in the wall to keep his mind from unraveling. But then, an extreme event tears through the silence. One night, a deafening bang echoes down the tier. An inmate, unable to bear it any longer, has slammed his head against the steel door again and again until he collapses in a pool of blood. The slow grind of isolation. After the chaos, things settle back into the routine of nothingness. Miguel eats his meals through a slot in the door. The food is cold and tasteless. He doesn't complain because no one cares. Time drags. Days feel like years. The guards rarely speak, only giving orders. The only voices Miguel hears are muffled screams from other cells, echoing like ghosts in the hallway. Still, Miguel clings to tiny rituals. Push-ups in the morning, humming old songs at night, scratching lines on the wall to mark the days. These rituals are his lifeline. But again, the cycle returns. One morning, he hears it, frantic shouting, then the sickening sound of fists pounding flesh. Through the crack in his door, he catches glimpses, two inmates, during a rare yard session, tearing into each other with a rage fueled by years of isolation. Guards rush in, pepper spray fills the air, and the men are dragged out, coughing, bleeding, half-blind. And Miguel realizes, if the silence doesn't kill him, the violence will. The voices in the dark. After the yard fight, the prison sinks back into its heavy silence. Miguel feels the quiet pressing on him like a weight. Hours blur together. He can't tell if it's day or night, but something begins to change. At first, it's a faint whisper, so soft he thinks it's a guard outside. Then it grows louder. Voices. Dozens of them. Some curse. Some laugh. Some call his name. Miguel covers his ears. He screams at them to stop. But the voices are inside his head. He realizes this is the true punishment of Pelican Bay Supermax. Isolation doesn't just cage the body, it breaks the mind. To fight back, Miguel invents a game. He names the cracks in the wall. He tells himself stories about freedom, about his childhood, about walking in the sun. For a few hours, it works. But then the extreme event strikes. In the middle of the night, an inmate down the tier begins howling like a wounded animal. The sound is raw, endless, and terrifying. Guards storm in. They find him sitting in a puddle of his own blood, arms slashed open with a hidden razor blade. The tier falls silent again, but now Miguel knows this place is swallowing men whole. The illusion of control. The next weeks crawl by. Miguel forces himself to stay strong. He works out harder, pushes his body until he collapses from exhaustion. Pain is better than madness. He keeps track of time by listening. The rattle of keys means breakfast. The slam of doors means lockdown. A cart rolling by means mail. He tries to stitch these sounds together into some kind of rhythm, some proof that the world outside his cell still exists. But the truth is, Miguel has no control. He can't choose when to eat, when to sleep, or when to speak. Even his thoughts feel like they're slipping from him. And then, another extreme event rips through his fragile routine. During a rare shower rotation, a guard opens a wrong door. Two rival gang members come face to face in the hallway. In seconds, the corridor becomes a battlefield, shouts, blood, fists slamming against steel. Guards struggle to break it up, dragging bodies across the floor. Miguel watches through the tiny slot in his door, heart pounding, realizing that in Pelican Bay, survival isn't about strength. It's about holding on to your mind before it disappears forever. The mind games. After the hallway fight, the prison settles back into its rhythm of silence and shadows. Miguel tries to focus on anything that will keep him sane. He counts, not just cracks anymore, but every sound he hears. The drip of a leaky pipe, the buzz of the lights, the footsteps of a guard. Numbers keep him grounded. But then the dreams start. Strange, vivid dreams that feel more real than his cell. He dreams of his mother cooking dinner, of kids playing in the street, of sunlight warming his face. For a few moments, he feels free. But when he wakes up, the cell walls are closer than ever. The contrast between dream and reality makes the pain sharper. The guards know the cycle. Some even play into it. One night, Miguel swears he hears them whispering outside his door, calling his name, taunting him. He bangs on the steel, shouting back. The laughter fades into silence. Was it real, or his mind playing tricks? And then, an extreme event shatters the fragile calm. A sudden fire alarm blares through the SHU. Red lights flash, and smoke seeps into the tier. Miguel hears inmates screaming, coughing, begging to be let out. Guards rush down the corridor in riot gear. No one knows if it's a drill or a real blaze. But in Pelican Bay, panic spreads faster than flames. The edge of madness. When the alarms stop, the smoke clears. It was a small fire, quickly contained. But the damage is done. The inmates have been rattled. Some refuse to sleep, pacing like caged animals. Miguel tries to calm himself by going back to his rituals. Push-ups, humming, scratching lines into the wall. But he can feel his grip slipping. The voices in his head return, louder this time, arguing with him, mocking him. He tries to fight back with memory. He closes his eyes and recalls walking to school as a boy, holding his father's hand. For a moment, it works. But then, another extreme event slams a tear. An inmate 2 cells down begins smashing his toilet, flooding the hallway with dirty water. He screams about demons crawling through the pipes. Guards storm in, dragging him out in chains, water sloshing around their boots. The smell of sewage fills the air. Miguel sits frozen, staring at the chaos. And he knows every day in Pelican Bay Supermax is a new war, and the enemy isn't just a system, it's your own mind. The clock that doesn't exist. In Pelican Bay's SHU, time has no meaning. No clocks, no windows, no sunlight. Just endless gray walls. For Miguel, every day feels the same. He wakes when food is shoved through the slot, eats in silence, then lies on a hard cot staring at the ceiling. He starts to measure time by his own body. The length of his beard, the dirt under his fingernails, the aching in his bones. It's the only way he knows the days are moving at all. Sometimes he talks to himself. He recites the alphabet. He sings childhood songs. At first, it feels embarrassing, but after weeks of silence, even his own voice is a comfort. But then, something unexpected breaks the dull routine. Miguel hears soft tapping on the wall. At first, he thinks it's nothing. Then he realizes it's a code. Another inmate is trying to communicate. For days, they tap back and forth, slow, careful messages. It's the closest thing to friendship Miguel has had in years. For a brief moment, he feels alive again. But then, an extreme event strikes. One morning, Miguel wakes up and taps the wall. Silence. No response. Hours pass. Still nothing. Later, he overhears guards talking. The man in the next cell was dragged out, screaming, after he tried to gouge his own eyes out. Miguel presses his forehead against the wall, realizes his only connection to humanity is gone. When the walls move, days pass, and Miguel begins to feel the walls closing in. Literally, he swears they move closer each night, shrinking his cell, pressing against his chest. He rubs his hands along the concrete. trying to prove it's all in his head. But the sensation won't stop. The air feels heavier. Breathing becomes harder. He lies awake at night, imagining the cell crushing him, inch by inch. To fight the fear, Miguel pushes his body harder than ever. Hundreds of push-ups, sit-ups, squats. He tells himself if he can control his body, he can control his mind. But no matter how much he sweats, the feeling of a shrinking cell doesn't leave. And then another extreme event. A violent pounding erupts from down the tier. An inmate is smashing his head against a steel door, shouting that the walls are eating him alive. Guards storm in, pin him to the ground, and carry him away, blood dripping across the floor. Miguel lies back on his cot, shaking. He doesn't know if what he saw is madness or a mirror of what's about to happen to him. Shadows in the cell. The days blur again. Miguel stops counting scratches on the wall because he's lost track. The silence grows heavier. And then the shadows begin. At first, it's simple. Shapes moving in the corner of his eye. He blinks, and they're gone. But soon, the shadows take form. He sees faces in the darkness, eyes watching him from the corner of his cell. Miguel tells himself it's not real. He squeezes his eyes shut, recites prayers under his breath. But the faces don't leave. They whisper his name, laughing, taunting, daring him to let go of his sanity. To resist, he builds a ritual. He paces in circles, talking out loud, pretending the voices are people he once knew, his family, old friends, even teachers from school. It works for a while. It keeps him tethered to reality. But then, an extreme event breaks that fragile hold. One night, Miguel wakes to find his cell drenched in red. The walls, the floor, his hands. Everything is soaked in blood. He screams, clawing at his skin, until a guard slams open the slot in his door. "What's wrong with you?" The guard barks. And just like that, the blood is gone. The cell is gray again. Miguel realizes it wasn't real. But his mind is no longer his own. The breaking chain. After the hallucination, Miguel is shaken to his core. He knows he's slipping, but he tries to fight back. He starts whispering to himself, "Stay strong. Stay strong. Don't let them win." Some days he manages to stay calm, staring at the ceiling for hours, forcing his mind to stay empty. Other days he breaks down, pounding the steel door until his hands swell. The guards barely look at him. To them, he's just another body in another box. But then, another extreme event rips the tier apart. During a rare moment when cells are open for showers, two inmates charge each other in the corridor. One produces a sharpened piece of metal, hidden for months. Screams erupt as blood spills on the concrete. Guards unleash pepper spray and batons. The fight is brutal, fast, and merciless. Miguel watches from his slot, chest tight. He realizes that here in Pelican Bay, sanity is not the only battle. At any moment, violence can spill into your world, reminding you that death is only ever one mistake away. The hunger of the mind. Miguel's world shrinks even more. Food comes through the slot 3 times a day, always the same. Cold beans, rubbery meat, stale bread. At first, he eats in silence. But after weeks, the meals take on a strange power. He begins to imagine tastes that aren't there. He chews slowly, pretending the beans are steak, the bread is cake, the water is wine. It becomes a twisted game of survival, feeding his imagination instead of his stomach. But hunger gnaws at him. Not just hunger for food, but hunger for touch, for conversation, for anything human. His body weakens, and his mind starts to wander again. Then, an extreme event shakes his fragile balance. One evening, he hears violent choking from the next cell. An inmate has hoarded pills, swallowed them all, and is gasping for air. Guards rush in, dragging the lifeless body out on a stretcher. The smell of vomit fills the tier. Miguel stares at the slot in his door, realizing that even eating or refusing to eat can become a weapon in Pelican Bay. The mirror in his head. The next days crawl forward. Miguel sits in silence, staring at the wall, waiting for something, anything, to break the monotony. And then it happens. In the stillness of the night, Miguel begins to see his own reflection, but there's no mirror in his cell. He sees himself sitting in the corner, staring back at him. Same eyes, same scars, same exhaustion. The reflection doesn't move like he does. It smirks when Miguel cries. It shakes its head when Miguel whispers prayers. He tries to fight it. He bangs his fist against the concrete. He screams for the guards. But when they peer inside, there's nothing there. Only Miguel, shaking in the corner, whispering to himself. And then the extreme event hits. Miguel lunges at the wall, trying to choke the phantom version of himself. His screams echo through the tier as guards storm in, pinning him down, strapping him to the bed. He thrashes until exhaustion finally drags him into unconsciousness. When he wakes, strapped and alone, he knows one truth. In Pelican Bay, the hardest fight isn't with enemies or guards, it's with your own mind. Shackled silence. When Miguel wakes, leather straps dig into his wrists and ankles. His body is pinned flat on the steel bed. The straps creak each time he moves, a cruel reminder that he's not even trusted with his own arms. Hours pass. He stares at the ceiling, trying not to scream. His throat burns with thirst, but no water comes. His muscles ache. He feels less like a man and more like an object, something broken that guards left tied down until it's safe to touch again. Finally, after what feels like days, the restraints are removed. Miguel sits up slowly, rubbing the angry red marks on his skin. He whispers to himself, "Don't lose it. Don't give them the satisfaction." For a while, the silence feels calmer. He eats, paces, breathes. He even manages to sleep without the voices. But the peace doesn't last, because the next extreme event slams into him without warning. In the middle of the night, a piercing shriek cuts through the tier. A guard has been attacked during a cell check. Through his slot, Miguel sees blood streaked across the floor and the guard carried out, clutching his arm. Inmates pound on their doors, screaming, howling, laughing. The tier turns into a madhouse. Miguel covers his ears, trembling, knowing the lockdown that follows will only make the silence worse. The lockdown. The attack means punishment for everyone. Full lockdown. No yard time. No showers. No visits. Nothing. Miguel's world, already small, shrinks to the size of his breath. The meals come later now, sometimes cold, sometimes barely there. The guards don't answer when he calls out. He is alone more than ever. His body grows weaker. His skin itches with sweat. His teeth ache. He scratches marks into the wall just to feel he exists. But the mind games come back stronger. He begins to hear voices singing, a chorus of men, chanting in a language he doesn't know. The sound rises and falls like a hymn, filling the cell. He presses his palms against his ears, but the song doesn't stop. It grows louder, rattling his skull. And then the extreme event. Miguel snaps. He leaps from his cot and slams his head against a steel door, over and over, trying to drown out the sound. Blood runs down his face. Guards rush in, drag him away as his screams echo through the tier. For Miguel, the fight to stay sane is slipping through his bloody hands. When reality cracks, Miguel lies on his cot, head wrapped in bandages, the taste of blood still in his mouth. His body is weak, but his mind is the battlefield now. He whispers to himself, "This isn't real. Stay strong. Don't let it take you." But the line between real and unreal has already started to blur. The walls seem to breathe, expanding and shrinking with each inhale. The floor ripples like water. Sometimes he swears the concrete whispers his name. Miguel clings to one memory, his mother's face, her soft voice telling him to be brave. He repeats it again and again like a prayer. For a while, it holds him together. But then the extreme event. Miguel opens his eyes in the dark and sees her. His mother, standing in the corner of his cell, eyes sad, hands outstretched. He stumbles toward her, calling her name, but when he reaches out, his hands pass through empty air. He collapses on the floor, sobbing. The cell isn't haunted. It's his mind collapsing. And Miguel knows it. The last thread. Days pass in a haze. Miguel barely eats. He barely drinks. His body is thin, his eyes sunken. The guards barely notice. He's just another inmate wasting away. But inside, Miguel fights desperately to hold on to the last thread of his sanity. He invents stories to tell himself. Whole worlds built in his mind. Sometimes he's walking free on a beach. Sometimes he's sitting in a kitchen with family. Sometimes he's just a boy again, running barefoot in the street. These fantasies keep him breathing, but the voices creep back, cutting into his dreams. They tell him he'll never leave, that Pelican Bay is forever, that he's already dead inside. And then, the extreme event erupts. One night, Miguel jolts awake to find his cell door rattling violently. From the slot, a hand shoots through, bloodied and desperate, clawing for anything it can grab. An inmate across the tier has broken free, and is tearing at the steel, screaming at the top of his lungs. Guards swarm in, pepper spray fills the air, and the man is dragged away in chains, his screams echoing long after he's gone. Miguel sits trembling in the corner, chest pounding. The cell feels smaller than ever, and for the first time, he wonders if surviving Pelican Bay is even possible. The fantasy world. Miguel sits cross-legged on the cold concrete floor, eyes closed. He's no longer in Pelican Bay, at least not in his mind. He imagines a wide-open sky, blue and endless. He imagines grass under his feet, the smell of the ocean, the warmth of the sun on his face. In his fantasy, he runs without chains, without walls, without fear. For hours, he stays there. It's the only place where he feels human. But the fantasy is fragile. A sudden clang of keys outside, his door shatters the illusion. The cell floods back into focus. Concrete walls, steel bars, no sky, no sun, just darkness. Miguel's chest tightens. His breath quickens. He bangs his fist against the wall, begging for the dream to return. And then the extreme event arrives. He hears laughter. Not from his head this time, but from the guards. They're mocking him, joking about how the crazy ones always talk to themselves. Their words cut deeper than any chain. Miguel screams back, slamming his fists until his knuckles split open. Blood streaks the wall. The guards walk away, their laughter echoing down the tier. The breaking ritual. After the guards' laughter, Miguel spirals. His rituals, his push-ups, his counting, his humming, no longer work. Each one feels empty, powerless. The voices drown them out, the shadows mock them, and the silence crushes him. He feels himself drifting, like he's floating above his body, watching a stranger trapped in a box. He whispers, "I'm still here. I'm still here." But even that feels like a lie. One day, he refuses to eat. He pushes the tray back through the slot. The next day, he does it again. By the third day, his stomach aches, but the hunger feels almost good, like control. For the first time, he's choosing something, but the control doesn't last, because the next extreme event strikes suddenly. An inmate down the tier begins smashing his cell with such force that the whole hallway shakes. He roars like an animal, swearing he'll burn the place to the ground. Guards swarming with shields, tear gas choking the air. The man is dragged out, still thrashing, spitting blood, eyes wild with madness. Miguel watches, numb, realizing that he's closer to becoming that man than he ever thought possible. The collapse within. Miguel lies curled on his cot, body shaking from weakness. He hasn't eaten properly in days. His stomach cramps twist like knives, but he refuses the food tray again. Control, that's all he has left, but the cost is heavy. His vision blurs. His thoughts come in fragments. Sometimes he forgets where he is. He hears his name whisper from the drain, feels hands brushing against his skin though no one is there. He tells himself he's still alive, that he's still fighting. But deep down, he knows the line between sanity and madness is gone. Then an extreme event. In the dead of night, Miguel wakes to find water pouring into his cell. At first, he thinks it's another hallucination. But no, the toilet is flooding. Dirty water rises fast, soaking the floor, carrying filth across his mattress. He climbs onto the cot, heart racing, as the stench fills his lungs. From the other cells, inmates scream and bang on doors. Guards rush in, boots sloshing through the flood. Shouts echo as they drag men from their cages, one by one. The tier is chaos. And Miguel, barely clinging to reality, feels the cold water lapping at his feet, thinking, maybe this is how it ends. The aftermath of the flood. When the water finally drains, the tier reeks of sewage. The floors are slick, the air heavy. Miguel sits on his soaked cot, shivering. His body is weak, his mind fractured. Yet in the silence after the chaos, he feels something strange, a spark of defiance. He survived it, again, but the victory is fragile. Hours later, the voices return, louder, sharper. They laugh at him, whispering that he's drowning inside his own head. He clutches his ears, but the sound doesn't stop. And then the next extreme event explodes. From the far end of the tier, an inmate erupts into rage. He smashes his food tray into shards and slashes at his arms, painting the walls with blood. Guards storm in, shields and batons swinging. The inmate's screams echo long after he's dragged away. Miguel sits frozen, staring into the darkness, realizing the truth. Surviving Pelican Bay Supermax isn't about fighting others. It's about fighting yourself. And not everyone wins that battle. The whisper of surrender. Miguel's body is a shell now. Thin arms, hollow cheeks, trembling hands. Every breath feels like dragging air through fire. He stares at the walls, waiting for them to move again, waiting for the shadows to come back. But this time, something new creeps in. A whisper, soft but steady. Give up, stop fighting. Let go. At first, Miguel shakes his head, muttering no. But the whisper grows louder, more convincing. It promises an end to the suffering, an escape from the concrete box. Miguel's heart pounds. He knows it isn't real. He knows it's his mind trying to destroy him. But part of him wonders, maybe surrender would be easier than another day of silence, shadows, and screams. And then, the extreme event crashes down. An inmate 2 cells away succeeds where others failed. His body is found hanging from a makeshift rope, tied to the bars. Guards rush in, alarms blare, the tier erupts with chaos. For hours, the stench of death lingers in the air. Miguel presses his back against the wall, whispering to himself over and over, "Don't let it be me. Don't let it be me." The breaking point. After the suicide, the prison clamps down harder. More lockdown, more silence, less food, less yard. The tension is unbearable. Every man in the tier feels it, like sitting on a ticking bomb. Miguel drifts further into himself. His rituals are gone. His fantasies are shattered. His only reality is pain. And then it happens. Miguel wakes one night with his hands wrapped around his own throat. His body is shaking, squeezing harder and harder. His brain screams for air, but his mind is calm, a terrifying calm. For a moment, he feels relief, like the fight is finally over. But then, something deep inside pulls him back. He collapses on the floor, gasping, sobbing, clutching his chest. The extreme event leaves him trembling, drenched in sweat. He realizes how close he came. 1 second more, and he would have lost the fight. And in that moment, Miguel understands the real war in Pelican Bay isn't fought with fists, blades, or riots. It's fought in silence, inside your own skull. A fragile spark. Miguel lies on the cold floor, chest heaving, eyes wide. His throat burns from the pressure of his own hands. The memory of that moment, almost ending it himself, shakes him to his core. For hours, he can't move. He stares at the ceiling, wondering if the whisper in his head will return. But slowly, something unexpected happens. A spark of stubbornness. A thought, I'm still here. It's small, fragile, but real. Miguel forces himself up. He gulps water from the sink, even though it tastes like rust. He forces down the cold beans and bread on his tray. He whispers out loud, over and over, I will not give up. I will not give up. For a few days, this fragile rhythm holds. He starts pacing again, counting, humming. The shadows stay back. The voices grow softer. For the first time in months, Miguel feels like maybe, just maybe, he can survive this place. But the calm doesn't last, because the extreme event returns with fire. The riot of the damned. It begins with shouting at the far end of the tier, then banging, then chaos. Inmates have snapped. They throw food, smash toilets, scream at the guards. Doors rattle as fists slam against steel. Then, smoke. Thick, choking, blinding. Guards fire canisters into the tier, flooding it with tear gas. Miguel coughs and gags, eyes burning, lungs on fire. The air is poison, but he can't escape. He presses his face to the crack in the door, desperate for air, but it doesn't help. Men scream, hacking and choking in their cells. The sound is like hell itself, bodies thrashing, voices breaking, fists pounding on doors. Miguel collapses to his knees, clutching his chest, thinking this is the end. The riot outside, the poison inside. It's too much. When the smoke finally clears, silence returns. But it's not the silence of calm. It's the silence of defeat, of broken men, lying in the dark, too weak to scream anymore. And Miguel, gasping on the floor, knows the fight to stay sane just got harder than ever. Ashes of the riot. The tear gas has faded, but its sting lingers in Miguel's eyes, nose, and lungs. The tear smells of smoke, sweat, and despair. Food trays come late, shoved roughly through the slots. No one touches them. Most of the men just lie on their cots, coughing, silent, broken. Miguel forces himself to eat. Every bite feels like swallowing sand, but he knows it's the only way to keep breathing, to keep standing. His stomach churns, but he pushes through. The riot has left the SHU scarred. Lights flicker. The floor is streaked with stains no one will clean. Miguel stares at the chaos carved into walls, scratches, dents, blood smears. It feels less like a prison and more like a tomb. Still, for a few days there is quiet, too quiet. It's the kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. And then the extreme event shatters the calm. The knife in the shadows. During a rare escort to the small outdoor cage they call yard, Miguel is shackled, his wrists and ankles chained. The fresh air stings his lungs, almost unreal after months inside. For a fleeting moment, he tilts his head toward the sky, just to feel the wind. But then chaos erupts. From another cage nearby, an inmate lunges forward, producing a shank carved from metal hidden for weeks. The weapon flashes in the sunlight as he stabs wildly through the bars, screaming with rage. Guards rush in, batons swinging, alarms blaring. Miguel is yanked back, chains biting into his wrists. Blood sprays across the concrete as the targeted inmate collapses, screaming. The yard becomes a war zone. Pepper spray clouding the air, guards wrestling the attacker down. Miguel is dragged inside, his heart hammering, chains rattling. Back in his cell, he trembles uncontrollably. The sky he craved has vanished. The reminder is clear. Even in rare moments of freedom, Pelican Bay is a place where death is always one breath away. The cage within. Back in his cell after stabbing, Miguel can't shake the image of blood on concrete. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees the weapon flash, hears the screams, feels the chains on his wrists. The cell feels even smaller now. He paces in circles, trying to burn out the memory. He counts, he hums. He presses his forehead against the concrete. But the truth gnaws at him. There's no escape. Not from the violence. Not from the silence. Not from his own mind. Still, he clings to his fragile spark. Every day, he forces himself to eat, to drink, to breathe. Survival isn't about strength anymore. It's about refusing to disappear. And yet, in Pelican Bay Supermax, even survival feels like defeat. The fight to stay human. Weeks turn to months. Miguel loses track of time, but he hasn't lost himself completely. He still whispers his name out loud every morning, just to prove he exists. He still hums the songs from his childhood. He still dreams of sunlight, even if the dreams hurt more than they heal. Around him, men scream, break, or vanish into silence. Some never come back. But Miguel holds on, thread by thread. His body is scarred, his mind fractured, but his will, to still be human in a place built to erase humanity, remains. And that will is the only reason he's still alive. The real Supermax. Sentence. Pelican Bay Supermax is not just a prison. It's a machine designed to break the body and crush the mind. Violence is everywhere, yes, but the real punishment is silence, isolation, the endless fight not to lose yourself. Men enter these cells thinking their battle is against rivals, gangs, guards, or the system. But the truth is darker. The fight is inside, a war in your own head, and not everyone survives it. Miguel's story is just one of thousands. Some make it out scarred. Others never walk free. And some lose the fight long before their sentence ends. Pelican Bay doesn't just lock men away. It locks them inside themselves. And for many, that's the harshest prison of all.